let it run. Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to talk about one aspect of my father's abusive personality that might strike other people as being quite comical. Is his grandiosity, his belief that he is noble, superior, that he is of a different breed than everyone else. And to start with, I'm going to talk about how he actually behaved, or behaves, what he's actually like. So, my father used to love walking around in his underwear. Now, he has always been quite fat, at least since I was 4 or 5 probably, he has always been quite fat. And he just looked at those as though he was a big baby in big diapers. But he loved strutting around in his underwear in the house. And he had this very, very strange way of laughing whenever he might have found himself amused. He went, Tezico! And I'm trying to give my best approximation of it. I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating, that's the way he laughed, and that's how we addressed my mother after he laughed, saying Tezico. It's really peculiar the way he did it, and I'm not sure why he was that way. He had these cool jokes as well. For example, he used to have this expression, hey Grandiose kids, you've shitted on the flag. I have absolutely no idea what that means. The way he said it, and using the same tone as when he laughed, it kind of suggested that it meant Grandiose kids, whoever those were, had screwed up, basically. He also made very, very stupid jokes. For example, I remember when we were outside waiting for the tram to come in the street, he started feigning drunkenness. It was a joke about people being drunk, and there was no punchline to it. It was just him showing people being drunk and going around very dizzily and making strange sounds. I actually laughed a lot at that time. I thought it was very silly, but looking back at it, I think that if he hadn't been my father, I wouldn't have laughed at it at all. I wouldn't have been amused at it at all. And in spite of this, my father believed himself to be full of qualities. He thought, for example, that his predictions were always accurate. Well, to be honest, I think that he partly said that his predictions had always been accurate in order to get people to believe that his future predictions would be accurate, and he would then make these predictions just to get people to think in a certain way. He also claimed that he was immune to the placebo effect because he was far too self-aware for that, which, knowing him, is a complete fabrication. And he claimed that he was a very, very good judge of character. Now, at the same time, my father tended to express his appreciation towards the genius of certain people he saw on the television, and later recant and actually shout at the television when these people were on. And to give an example, he really liked Băsescu, a guy who became mayor and later president. In fact, he's a source of national shame. Not only did he approve of the cuts to public services and kiss America's ass, he also, during one of his campaigns, he punched a little kid in the face, and he still got elected in the most recent election campaign, even though the videos of him were showing him punching the kid in the face. So it's a horrible country in that sense. So my father had praised Băsescu while he was running for mayor, and then he ran for mayor, and what he did was kill all the stray dogs. Surprisingly, then he ran for president and he got elected. So yeah, interesting country. Um, but having seen him kill all the stray dogs, my father shouted at him and shouted at the television screen and booed at it, becoming very upset. So there goes him being a good judge of character. But he never actually noticed, or certainly he never wanted anyone else to notice his mistakes. So he also called himself a university professor while he was working on his PhD. He was, I think, teaching assistant, something to that effect, an assistant lecturer, but he was calling himself a university professor to the family, so that we would respect him more, I suppose. He also believed that him being Armenian meant that he had a noble heritage, that he was superior to Romanians, that we, as in presumably me as well, I never felt that anything he said made me feel superior, that we were superior to Romanians and to every other people, presumably. He also stated his belief, maybe a delusion or maybe just a lie, that he was descended from rich Armenian merchants. I might have mentioned that. So how did he try and uphold his grandiosity? How did he try to look grandiose to everyone else? How did he want everyone else to feel about him? Well, there are plenty of things I can remember. First would be that he wanted to have the biggest plate in the house. Now, at the dinner table, back when we actually stayed at the dinner table, there were just ordinarily sized plates, and his was the only one that was bigger than everyone else's, and he really liked that. As well as this, my father was very keen on showing off how wealthy he was, and he, even when I needed money, for example, to buy groceries, I never really asked for a lot of money. He asked me to go into the hallway and fetch him either his pants, because he laid his pants on a coat hanger, or to fetch him his wallet, his purse, and then when I went back to him, he got money out, counted it, and gave it to me, in order to show that he was supplying me with the money. Now, my father always tried to control me and the rest of the family through money. I wisely refused that for the most part, unless I really needed money for something, and then of course I wouldn't show him that I desperately needed it. I think I didn't have to even conceal it, because I was just very tense at the time, so whatever emotion I showed him would be tension and discomfort. What else was there? He really wanted to set up a hierarchy in the house, in the sense of, we had a computer and later several computers. My father gave us a computer when he bought a new one, and what happened was he would then give my brother the next best computer and give me the worst computer, which was perfectly fine with me. I didn't want a very sophisticated computer, but it still felt as though he was trying to create a hierarchy, and my brother sucked up to him a lot. One thing that my father said was that he could set up a business in which I would be working for my brother, and that seemed very bizarre. Why would I want to necessarily work for my brother? In fact, I would have rather been working for myself. But the sense that there was always a hierarchy, and he had to be on top, and everyone else had to be in the hierarchy underneath him, and those he favored had to be his seconds in command, so to speak. There was always that undertone to everything he did. So my brother did like being, okay, second in command. He stayed at the same desk as my father. They stood side by side, and the atmosphere was really one of psychophancy. One could tell that my brother didn't like my father, but he kissed up to my father, possibly because of obligation, and certainly because he could get money out of that. He could get a better living out of that. I think that my father's grandeur was that of a small child, a 2-year-old. It's often mentioned how narcissistic people behave like 2-year-olds but expect to be treated as God. I believe I even read an article in a blog that described my father's way of walking around in his underwear. They do very stereotypical things, so what this woman's father had done was the same thing that my father had done. But to show how childish he was, I'll give one last example. When I was probably at university, I decided to play some Lego Technic. That's a kind of Lego in which you build machinery. And I wanted to try my hand at building a robotic arm. Now, I didn't know how to build one. I didn't have any plans in mind. I just decided to go ahead and start building something, which wasn't a very good strategy. My father, meanwhile, decided to join in and play with me, but what he did was compete with me. He got plans out of Lego box that had been included in the Lego box, and he started building a tractor. He didn't do anything original, he just built it according to the schematics. But as I was trying to work out how the machinery could be assembled into a robotic arm, my father commented as he finished his tractor, "Hey, see, do you like my tractor? Isn't this really, really clever?" Well, he didn't say that, but he just kind of rubbed it in that he had built a tractor and I hadn't finished a robotic arm. In fact, I was quite struggling to build one. And of course, there was no actual competition. It was very stupid of my father to assume so. But he really felt as though he had won something against me for having built a tractor from some schematics. That's really his grandiosity. So, thanks for watching this video, and I'm going to be talking about my father's ideology next, as the culmination of the description of his character.